Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us on another episode of today's Electrical Estimating. I'm your co-host, Chris Trommer, and as always, I'm joined by our other co-host, Sal Huerta.
Good morning, everyone.
Sal, we got Nick back with us today. You know, he's coming from a large electrical contractor company out in the Midwest. And I like what he's talking about today because, you know, it might be something that larger contractors are already utilizing, but maybe smaller to medium-sized contractors should be listening. And he's really going through their process on how they start their estimate, how they look at the scope of the work, how they're asking the necessary questions so they can lay the foundation for this upcoming project. So if they win the bid, you know, when they hand it over to their project management team, a lot of the questions are already answered. The management team's not walking onto the site, having any guesswork or trying to second guess anything or figure anything out because the estimators already asked all those questions. They understood what's necessary and they built it in. So for, like Nick was saying, less change orders, less downtime, more productivity, but then coming full circle, something that we sort of discussed with Matt Firestone, last season, was revisiting your project at the end, sort of looking at, okay, I'm done with the project. Where did I finish? You know, did I finish with more profit than I thought? You know, comparing how you finished the project to where you started with your estimate so that you can learn for the future. And Nick really talks about that, learning from your mistakes, learning from the project, and being able to implement that into your next upcoming project to make yourself even better. So, as I said, might not talk as much to a larger company that maybe already implementing these kind of things, but you know, Matt said, even if you're small or medium sized, you need to start doing these things now to have them in place so everybody's used to it happening. And all they can do is help you.
Yeah, and those are three big points that you just touched on right there that every company should be looking at. You know, the first one, like you said, was ask questions. The more questions you can ask up front, I mean, not just one or two, but tens, 20s.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I
think
think
Nick,
Nick, you had talked about. Go ahead.
I think Nick said 72 questions he had on one of the jobs.
Absolutely. You see, the more that you can do ahead of time, then what that does is that it preps everybody and gives everybody the knowledge base that they'll need when they go out there, and they'll be much more comfortable with what they're doing when they have all these questions answered. You know, the ending part to that, which you mentioned, was after the job is done, there could be instances that you didn't account for that were, not on the scope of work originally or things like that, that you can now add in as another question that you'll be able to ask on the next job. So yeah, reviewing it all afterwards is super big as well. And then of course, the last one you mentioned, which was change orders. You know, the today you want to keep all those change orders to a minimum as you possibly can, so that way there's no unexpected things popping up. So keeping the change order down will keep the general contractor happy, keep the job flowing, and keeps everything on task.
Got it. Well, with that being said, let's let them jump into this episode with Nick because he has a lot more information and a lot more useful information that we're going to share. So, as always, thank you for joining us. If this is your first time, please take a minute to subscribe. We're putting out new episodes almost every single Friday. So, Sal, as always, great speaking with you.
Thank you again.
And take care, everybody. Have a great rest of your week. So we were just talking about that particular project, the estimate, sort of showing your work. It was sort of like a math equation where you just didn't show up and say the answer is 21. You said, hey, we did 7 times 3, we got 21. And it gave you credibility because of the fact that you showed them, this is what we're bringing to the table. This is what we did to get here. They had an understanding that you took the time to do the work to get to a number. Beyond the project's basic specifications, what additional factors do you consider when you're estimating a project cost to ensure, accuracy and thoroughness?
The scope of work, following your scope of work is what is a big thing. So like on that big job and a lot of the bigger jobs, you got your scope of work, even though it has, most of the times specs are I'm going to call them the cookie cutter effect. like on this job right now I'm working on, it's like, well, they have this, but then the scope of work contradicts. Well, you're reliable for the specs and the scope of work. But I mean, up to this date, I think I've submitted 72 questions on this job of asking questions. And they're like, oh, these are good. But that's our job, is to dig in and I'm gonna say turn over every rock and get it all figured out. So I mean, I don't know. Hopefully that answered your question, I guess. But
Yeah.
the scope of work, big thing. Yes.
So something there that just, you said you submitted 72 questions on there. So are these things as you're going through the specs that you got that you're seeing and that you're questioning and asking, can we
So
do this differently, or why did we do this to begin with? Is that the type of questions that you're asking?
this is a job in Des Moines, Iowa. I don't know if I can sell it. I can say that it's the airport, but so this is our third pass. I mean, we helped with the budgeting with the general contractor, but then now we're having to bid this. And just knowing the reason these questions are coming up is going, combing through the specs, combing through the drawings. Is it adding up? Is the scope of work matching up? Is this what the owner really wants? Because we've worked at the airport for years. We know what the airport wants,
Mhm.
but these are new general contractors. So it's like, I don't know if that's what they do, right? Or if and that's what the end result is. But so that's where all these questions are coming through. I know it sounds like a lot, but we get a 3 week on this job. It's for 3 weeks to work on our estimates. But so if we can get these answered, I mean, we can provide the owner or the general contractor and the owner the best price that we can.
Now, you
Um,
mentioned scope of work a few times there. Just to be clear, would you be able to, maybe break it down to like the basic term of what you mean by that?
So this okay. The scope of work is like, so you need to install like light fixtures, power panels, disconnects for the motors. I mean, elevator power modules. You need to do voice and data cabling, car access. You need to provide. So in this restroom, they have, when you go in the restroom, not to be TMI, but when you go in the restroom, it has a light red or green if it's full, occupied or not. I mean, it's
Mhm.
very new. But I'm like, wow, this is very detailed, which they didn't have this on the original scope of work. They've added it. It's because I guess, well, not TSA, but the government airport people are going to be doing that, whatever. So that was something that was, and it's expensive.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, okay. So does the owner really need this? Like, the owner doesn't need it, but there's some federal things that say that they want this stuff.
Gotcha.
Uh,
All right.
so I don't know. I mean, but in a scope of work, it's kind of, you live and die by it, I guess. It's my checklist. It needs to match up to your bid form. So I mean, that ultimately at the end of the day, you're held accountable to your scope of work.
Okay. So sort of what you're focused in on, the details of
Correct.
it.
Yeah, I feel like a laundry list. Laundry or a grocery list of what you need to have in the cart to get your job done.
Got it. So let me ask you, we were just talking about this project at the airport. Would you be able to share any techniques or strategies you employ to sort of minimize the discrepancies between what you're putting together in the estimate and actual project costs, so that you're not looking at overruns or, you know, any issues down the line, what you guys maybe put into place to make sure you're as accurate as possible?
So what we typically do is, so I mean, this airport job, we don't have it yet, but like that bigger job I was talking about. So once you get, say, the notice to proceed or get the contract, we
Mhm.
sit in a big conference room here and say, all right, it's kind of like a estimate handover
Okay.
to the project team, project management team, and say, hey, here's your quotes, here's this, here's that, here's what we see, kind of tell your story to the others. And then we have like they call it a CIF, but we do it Commonwealth. It's contract information form. And
Mhm.
so they fill all that stuff in. And so as they're getting their pricing, we got quotes, but as you get your pricing into like verify with our quotes versus their contract information form, and that they can update that throughout when they do their billings and all that stuff throughout the project. And I'm not a project manager, but I know just a little bit about how they do that process. But hopefully that answers you. I mean, like I said, I don't want to step on their toes as much. But
No, I understand. So you're pretty much sitting down and doing as you mentioned, a handover. So you're connecting with the project managers and saying, "Hey, this is how we saw the project. This is how we built the project. This is how we bid the project. This is where our costs are
Yes,
coming in and what the costs were at the time." And we're now hand it over to them, but you take the time to explain, or as we mentioned previously, show your work of how you got to those numbers so
yeah,
that they understand, okay, XYZ equals 3, and this is how they got to this answer here, so that they know why you did what you did there and the reasons why you were doing it.
correct. And a lot of times this is like with Orbic DEP is it's digital takeoff. We actually show our runs like, hey, you're going to go under slab or PVC underground, just so they know PVC versus EMT overhead. Um, so what we'll do is we'll actually export our takeoff sheets to PDF. So then our electricians have them on their iPads and say, oh, Nick ran it this way. Well, can they honestly they'll figure a faster, cheaper route because they're the professionals. That's what that's not. I mean, they're supposed to make more money, obviously, right? um,
So this has me thinking. So, we talked before, you said you were asking on one project, all these questions, 72 questions. Are you, when you ask all these questions, is that setting up your team for success in the future? Because all the questions that you answered to get your replies for, to get an understanding of what should be done, clarifying what you guys need to do, by the time you go to hand this over the project management team, there isn't as many questions left so that they can take what they have and actually just proceed with it and not have to come back asking questions at that time.
Correct. Correct. You're totally right. Like on this one job, the high rise. I mean, usually they core drill the floor sometimes for your conduits. Well, they wanted this actually this it's a steel uh sleeve with flanges. So it's actually going to be pouring at the floor. So you got to lay out with the pan guy and they got to cut that out, put it in. But when you have in each electrical room, we had 12 uh, sleeves. And then there's four on each floor. So there's 48 sleeves per floor, 49 floors, right? That adds up when they're $72 a piece.
Mhm.
Right. So I mean, and that's a more added cost. Okay, the outer project manager or electrician wouldn't know that,
Yeah.
but we helped dig into that and price it up from the get go. And again, on this big job that we're working on now, the 72 question one, I mean, part of it is we had to ask that question, and they do want that. I mean, and it's and the reason we ask the question is that when they publicize it, so everybody sees it in an addendum, uh, and so we're all on the equal playing field. A lot of times, the Commonwealth, us, we get held to a higher standard. They're like, well, Commonwealth, you should have known that. Well,
Mhm.
so how is pricing this now? The electricity or the other electrical company is going to know what I'm pricing it to match as apples factors, right? So I mean, I've always been, get it out there, ask the question, know what that engineer wants you to do.
So it sort of seems like, I mean, estimators are sort of laying the foundation for the project. You're getting through the thick of it and the understanding of what needs to be going on and what should be going on, asking the questions, connecting with the right people, making changes as they need to go to lay that foundation so that when it gets to your project management team, guesswork has been removed. It's to a point to where, hey, obviously changes are going to happen. Things are going to happen on a day-to-day basis, but we've tried to take out as much as possible for you right here so that you guys can get on site and do what you need to do.
You're spot on. I mean, take the bullets out of the gun, right? I mean, we want to win, right? And I mean, in every job, it's I mean, I want every job, right? Um, and so when we have, like I said, that core processes and procedures, we have all there, fill out the bid information sheet, and that has helped us. And on there it says ask questions if needed, or I mean, we have like a bullet points, and that helps throughout the process.
Mhm. Now, it seems like, as we know, change orders are an obvious thing, but talking about following up with what we are talking about, laying that foundation, that a good foundation can positively anticipate and sort of manage those changes and sort of minimize their impact on the timeline and budget.
Yes, it does. And like a lot of these questions that are asked, I mean, they do save a lot because it's exposed and it's brought to the engineer before big time, so we can have that included, and everybody can have it included at bid time, so you're bidding apples to apples. And a lot of times, I know that there's no change orders, right? But like we all know, I mean, things do come up.
Mhm.
Um, but if we can keep it to a minimum, I mean, it makes the owner and us, or the contractor and us, look good, right? And there's some of them that you're going to say, okay, I'll take care of that for Sal or whatever, you know what I mean? The owner, but, to keep that to a minimum because nobody likes to get change ordered to death.
Yeah, no, fully understand. And I mean, I guess something to go off of that would be, do you guys implement any strategies that, track or analyze when you do get change orders or you do run across any issues or overruns on a job that allows you guys to bring it back inside and say, hey, this is what happened. Here's what the root cause was. Now, what can we do to improve, ourselves for the future so that on a next project coming up, we have insight and now I can spread this information out to my team of estimators so that they have a better understanding in case they come up with this, so that we don't have the same problem again.
Yeah, and so what we do is that the project they'll run the project on progress. It's a progress report, and they can watch to the day, to the week. And so they kind of know where they're going to be for hours and like for their schedule and all that stuff. And know, okay, yeah, we're doing all right. Or it may be a rainy season. I don't know. And they may not be able to get in the dirt or something. I'm just making something up.
Yeah.
Just different factors. You never know. But then what we usually do at the end to your point, to know how to adjust for the future is, hey, we bring the superintendent or that general foreman out in the field, can bring them in with the project manager and say, hey, what problems did you have? Well, I'm just going to bring up a school. They showed a overhead projector with a plug-in, which is fine. Well, they had this whole 2 foot by 2 foot metal pan box that would drop down, and the electricians had to install it, but we didn't have that extra stuff figured in, and you had 3 rooms to do. I mean, I know that's on a school. I mean, so that eats some of your labor. But if that was shown, we didn't know that because as an estimator sitting in an office, he doesn't know that. But kind of I'm going to say like a meetup or just kind of a summary of the job and say, hey, don't do this next time or do this next time. So like on this high rise, for one instance, is we got to put in some baseboard heaters. Well, carrying these 5 foot baseboard heaters, they're 5 foot piece. I think there's 492 of them. Okay. So when you got to carry them up 49 floors, I mean, it's going to take you some more labor than just say, hey, it's right here. So, I mean, that's one thing that, the electricians helped us labor that, and, the project management, is the elevator going to be open to get that material out there? I don't know, and that's always a big thing. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of fun to me to hear these guys talk like, okay, yeah, that didn't work or that worked. Or like you said, to cover your labor, say, hey, we need to put a little bit more labor here. Or so we had one job that we had to do is we had to run some conduit. This is at the university down here. They had to run some conduit in the wall. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll just run it in the wall. Well, the wall was only an inch and a quarter stud. They put them on their face. Well, you can't run a 3/4 inch conduit in there. So what they said is run 1/2 inch and take a grinder and grind out every stud so you can set it in there and put the drywall over it. I'm like, we didn't have that figured, right? Wouldn't do that, and the engineer's like, well, it has to be that way. And we're like, okay. But things like that, that, you don't necessarily catch.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I mean, we miss things, right? But Yeah. It's learning from your, I guess, your mistakes, if you will, or your past history. Sometimes them old dogs, you need them old dogs. You can't get rid of them. You need, because they can help us find our success.
I mean, it feels like everything comes full circle listening to, because we started a conversation saying how when you're doing your handover with the project manager, you guys are coming in and saying, "Hey, this is why we did this. This is what this is." We asked the question here, and this is the response. You might be thinking the same thing as us. This is why we ran our conduit here or did this here. And then, months, years, however long the project is, comes back. You're sitting at the same table looking across the guys, and they're saying, "All right, well, that didn't go as planned, but this is why we had to do this." And then you guys are learning from their experiences there so that you can bring it back on the next one to have a better understanding of, hey, if we run into this, we can do
Yeah.
this so that we don't have the same problem as we did the time before. So it seems like it's a full circle that you guys are using to keep everybody, I don't want to say honest because it seems like everybody is, but keep everybody on the same page and progressively
Right.
move your company forward so that you're not
Yeah.
doing the same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah. I mean, and then again, I said it before, learn from your mistakes. I mean, my dad always told me, if you don't make mistakes, you're not doing anything.
Mhm.
I mean, when I was younger, I'm like, what? But sometimes, it kind of, yeah, you might have been right, but I don't know. But I just feel if you roll your sleeves up and get in there and dig into it, um, I guess you're in the heart of it, right? Trying to solve the problems. The best thing for me is working with the electrician, with the engineers and the electricians, because it's like they're the guys making the money, right? They're the ones installing. They're the professionals. We're just a tool in their toolbox. Is all we are. The way I see it.